item is approval of the minutes of September 13th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll second it.
Were there any discussion with respect to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes? There were no objections, and it is unanimously approved.
Congratulations, Melissa, that was a long roll. She transcribed everything everybody said that day. Yeah, it was a page after page after page.
The next, the first item, action type item is public participation. We had 10 people that we agreed that could speak for 3 minutes each. And I wanted to remind people that under the administrative code, no personal complaints regarding personnel or anyone connected with the library is appropriate in the meeting. Any complaints against personnel or board members should be put in line. And also I would say if anyone today wishes to address any particular book that is in a library, that they begin by telling us which library that book was in, which date they reviewed that book in that library, and what section of the library that book was in. And with that, the first participant is Dallas Valley, who is, I know from here.
I'm right here. Good morning.
I know from Mr. Dalio is the former director of the Mobile Public Library, and I was a board member on that board for a number of years and treasurer. So, Mr. Dalio.
All right. I'd like to hand some things out to the board, if you don't mind. I'll just start with, I'm not asking you to look at them today, but I'll let y'all pass them around. I probably have more than you need.
You do.
I'll take this one off the back because this is just backup stuff, extras.
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. As he just said, I was director of the Mobile Public Library for 23 years. Before that, I was director of the Bloomington, Illinois Public Library for 5 years. I didn't leave Illinois to get warm. I came down here to run in the library. However, okay, I'm going to try to be very quick, all right, because I have 3 minutes. And so what you have there, you can look at it, or you can wait, or I'll tell you what you had. You had, well, something I want to say first. When I was raising my daughters, I encouraged them to have a healthy dose of cynicism, or so that not to be taken in by others. And I'd like to somewhat emphasize that anyway. And then the other thing, just talking about in general, read the book. Read the book. Read the book. Now, what I've provided you is an evaluation of Clean Up Alabama's About page, or their mission. And I've also provided you the definition of obscenity. And then I've provided you additional information about book looks, which is where these, you can't call them reviews because I think they call them, somebody can help me, I can't remember, but they're not reviews. They themselves say they're not reviews. And I'd like to point out too that there's some information about them there, and they say it's an opinion. I think that's important for you to know. So that makes a little bit of difference also. And then I provide information about 401c3s and 401c4s. C4 is what's often called dark money. So you've got that in front of you. Now, and also you have some of the reviews there. Well, not yet, but I'll get to that. But you do have, when you look at what Clean Up Alabama has published, and they have what they show as, I don't know quite how to describe it other than where their source is, and every source comes from book looks. It's not, they haven't written what for their own selves. They've taken it all from book looks. So you need to know that. Now, a quick about the Alabama Public Library Service, and I hope I'm not getting real close to the 3 minutes, and I certainly don't want to go over. If someone's keeping the time, I don't know if they'll over, but I won't, you know. But what I want to mention about the American ALA, I'll just say that. I'm a little nervous, I'm trying not to be, but I am a little. Is that I was a member for all the time I was a public librarian. And I found them very helpful. I remember when I first got my job in Illinois, I went to one of their conventions and I attended a meeting about how to insure your library book collection. It's a little difference in that than insuring something else. Isn't that boring? But that's how it helped me, okay? I'll make that point. And there were other things over the years that I found helpful. Yes, they do propose libraries adopt something. I want to make another point that they have absolutely no power over a local public library. Zero. They're members, and I was a personal member. But, and the individual who I think has been called Marxist or something like that in some of this information, is an elected official, and it rotates every 2 years, every 1 year. And the other thing about it that you need to know that that person can't even vote in what they call their council meetings. So that's important to know. Now, the final thing, there may be an agenda with this, I don't know. But you know, I don't care what y'all do. I don't care if you withdraw from ALA. That's okay with me, even if I was library director still. It's fine, withdraw. I think there's some ramifications to it that you want, just like with state aid, there are ramifications. But so you ought to think about that also. And one quick thing about state aid, since I'm on that subject, and I hope I'm still not out of time.
You really have run out of time.
Okay.
Finish that thought and then let's proceed.
Okay, well.
And I appreciate it, but we've just got so many people.
Okay, can I say one more thing?
One more thing.
Okay. Thank you very much. State aid is something that this agency administers to libraries, y'all know. Some of you may not know that, okay? It's not a lot of money, but small libraries, very small libraries, depend on it. Because they don't have much local funding. And so if it's cut out, it will affect this agency, but all the small libraries across our state. For the Mobile Public Library, it was 4% of our budget, 4%. That's probably true of a lot of other large libraries. If I were still in charge and it was cut out, I'd say, oh, that's a shame. Then I'd just go on. I would not have to respond about it. Now, and a lot of these small libraries probably aren't even aware of what's going on. I have to say that for sure, but you need to know. Thank you, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm perfect.
All right, Brian Dawson. Mr. Dawson here?
No, I'm pretty sure he has another engagement.
Okay.
Totally got that.
Angie Hayden.
member actually, and a Prattville resident. After months of misrepresenting young adult literature as children's books to manufacture outrage, Clean Up Alabama said in a recent AL.com article that they believe that Governor Ivey's proposed administrative changes, which you will vote on today, do not go far enough. And in that piece, they demand policies that would restrict access to, quote, content regarding sex, sexuality, and gender, even if it isn't necessarily explicit. This has never been about sexually explicit content, so I think we can stop pretending. At Clean Up Alabama's recent Stop the Sexualization of Children in Alabama Libraries roundtable event, an event by its very name, which makes vile accusations that endangers librarians, the panelists openly stated that they consider material that affirms LGBTQ families as, quote, unprotected speech and inappropriate for children. Panelist and 1819 News president Brian Dawson, who I think was supposed to be here, went so far as to suggest a theocracy and boldly called for book burnings. No one objected. Cleanup's executive director, Hannah Reese, actually applauded. We encourage you to view the unedited footage of that event on our website, cleanupalabama.org. Freely.org. I have not yet had a chance to listen to Mr. Dawson's podcast from yesterday, which I believe Mr. Wall attended. But I wonder if he made these same comments, and I wonder if he also told you that he would prefer children access Playboy in public libraries rather than LGBTQ affirming materials. Clean Up Alabama and most of their supporters, like Dawson, are hell-bent on trampling the civil rights and liberties of Alabamians they deem inappropriate. We can no longer pretend otherwise. We want to make one thing clear. This Moms for Liberty, Clean Up Alabama extremism is unpopular and voters are tiring of it. Recent election trends show it, and Clean Up Alabama's own member and roundtable moderator, Sarah Sanchez, acknowledged it during their event, saying, quote, "The other side has been winning. We are not the winners. We are not popular." Know that Clean Up represents a small but loud minority, and we, the reasonable majority, have resisted this unconstitutional extremism, and we have had overwhelming support from voters across party lines at every turn. There are no negotiating with these groups. They will never agree to any compromise. If any of you are genuinely concerned about Alabama library practices or collections, please visit a local library in your district and engage with your librarians there. You will find that they care deeply about parental rights, protecting children, and practicing dynamic constitutional librarianship at the local level. We must now insist that you reject extremism and preserve the rights of Alabama citizens and families like mine, and libraries to curate collections that represent all community members. Thank you.
All right, Lori Fulfilling. Is she not here today? She's spoken before.
Can I have her 3 minutes?
I'm afraid not. All right, Carol Johns.
These are not necessarily color coded, but I'll just decode it and have enough of either color. So I figured the purple ones I would give to the women, because I don't think they would want them. John, that one, whoever, I just want to make sure everybody has one. So I have either.
I like purple too.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
I'll trade this with you. If you would read.
No, I'm good.
Here, I'll go ahead and.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Carol Johns. I live in Prattville. I'm here today to talk a little bit about pornography. Mr. Snyder, thank you for inviting those of us who were not able to come last time to come back this time. I appreciate that. I didn't have to put another request in. And thank your executive secretary to make that occur. It's very helpful. For your request, I am not going to attack any of the board members here like the Room Freely group just did. But I am going to do what you asked me to do and let you know I am going to speak briefly about genderqueer and the bluest eye. You asked to me to acknowledge that. In your book, you'll see that I have spoken with folks at the Houston County Library. They have both the Bluest Eye and genderqueer. They had some reconsideration. Genderqueer is now moved in the 18 and over section, per the letter you can see, but Bluest Eye, is still back in the young adults section. Book looks, for what you were spoken about, I did print out what they said, but it's not an opinion piece, it is direct excerpt from the book. I'm not gonna read that out loud. For last time, you didn't really want that.
Thank you.
So I thought I'm just going to let you read it at your own pace, or not, or just burn it, because the stuff that's in there is not that very nice. And then behind that is some pictures from the different books. I don't know which library those are at, but I just wanted to let you know the Bluest Eye, there's direct excerpts from that. The other thing is, the last time when I was not able to speak, I emailed you guys all the impact of internet pornography on kids. It's a long read. Probably y'all didn't have a chance to read it, so I printed that out for you guys, so you have a chance to read that at your leisure. Let's go here. Mr. Warren, the director of the Houston County Library, in the reconsideration of genderqueer, he explains about why they did not do that, and they also did that about the Bluest Eye. I just want you to know, I talked to Joseph at the Westgate Library in Houston County yesterday, and I understand that's probably true across the state. There's age groups within the books, but there's not an age group as who can check out the books. He confirmed if you have a library card, anyone can check out any book. There is not a requirement. I know there's a library further west of there that has only 2 of the books on that list, and you have to be 18 to check those books out. I don't know if that would be something that y'all would consider doing or asking of the library, because in my final thing, I'll tell you, if you look in here, I'm not going to show it, but if you want to look in here on your last page, that is sexually explicit material.
I've seen it.
Okay, and all I'm asking is y'all to consider that. I don't know what y'all can do. This particular book by Maya, whatever her name is, just note that ALA was a 2020 winner at the ALA Alex Award, given to books written for adults that have special appeal for the young adults 12 to 18. The author herself has stated that the book was meant to be read for those individuals struggling with their gender identity, for the older teenage kids and 20 and up. It was never meant to be read to 8-year-old or 12-year-olds, well, 12-year-old I guess, but younger than 18. It was not meant for those people to read it. And so I would just ask y'all to consider that when you're looking at whether or not to separate from the ALA, is that this particular book, they considered okay to be in everybody's library and anybody can check it out. There has to be a line in the sand somewhere to say this has got to stop, because what is next from ALA? What next are they going to try to say you have to have this in your library? I'm not saying it's a constitutional First Amendment right, as y'all want to say, but I think in this state in particular, the parents have spoken, and you are wrong. The majority do not want this material in their library in front of their kids. And I think going forward, I hope that the board puts that motion into action and separates from the ALA today.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
All right. Cheryl Blanchard. Is she here? You don't know her?
I don't know.
All right, Matthew Lane.
If you wouldn't mind passing those around. So that's got the text of my remarks and then some other material for you all to review. All right. Good morning, Dr. Pack from afar. Esteemed members of the APLS Executive Board, friends, colleagues, and library and literature lovers. I am Matthew Lane, President of the Alabama Library Association for 2023-2024. I mention the length of my term to remind us all that these leadership roles are extremely temporary. Blink and they are over. I ask you to remember that fact as you consider the decision you'll make today regarding whether APLS should disaffiliate from the American Library Association. Should you vote to disaffiliate from ALA, by the time the effects of your decision are truly felt, ALA's current president, Emily Drabinski, will no longer be serving. I am aware that Mr. Drabinski has made some statements regarding Marxism, but I would remind you the views Ms. Drabinski holds are hers and hers alone. The American Library Association is composed of over 50,000 librarians who hold religious, political, and social beliefs as diverse as the material on the shelves of any good library. Ms. Drabinski is not an autocrat, but one voice in the ocean of voices which make up the American Library Association. It has been further asserted that because Article 5 of ALA's Library Bill of Rights states a person's right to use a library should not be denied or abridged because of origin, age, background, or views, that Alabama libraries are somehow seeking to usurp the rights of parents and guardians and control what items children access and check out from the library. This could not be further from the truth. Alabama's public libraries fully support parental and guardian rights to access their children's accounts, and we strongly encourage parents and guardians to be involved in the reading lives of their children. You can bet if material is returned to the library in damaged condition, or heaven forbid, not returned at all, it's not the child who the library staff will be contacting. It's the parents. Finally, I would remind you before you make this vote that Governor Ivey herself discouraged disaffiliation from ALA in her second action request for the APLS board, and instead stated, and I quote, "The library service should amend its requirements for state aid to ensure that any expenditure of public funds to the ALA will be approved by the local library board in an open public meeting. The executive board of the Public Library Service should similarly require board approval of any expenditures of public funds to the ALA. Taking these actions will allow public libraries to continue to access useful resources on a case-by-case basis while ensuring greater input by the taxpayers who fund them." End quote. I agree with our governor. Do not disaffiliate the Alabama Public Library Service from the American Library Association. In regard to Governor Ivey's first and third action request, we at the Alabama Library Association strongly encourage all Alabama public libraries to have collection development policies, reconsideration of materials policies, and unsupervised minor policies in place. My hope is that the APLS Executive Board will encourage all public libraries in the state of Alabama to adopt such policies to facilitate greater parental supervision of their children in regard to library materials. This will further ensure that parents and guardians feel empowered to challenge materials they find objectionable. I enjoy a good story time as much as the next librarian, but in my opinion, the APLS Executive Board session is neither the time nor place for adults to read us their favorite passages from books. Any questions or issues regarding the content of library materials should be handled at the community level. At the community level, I, as a Mountain Brook resident, don't have the right to come into Prattville and say, I don't think you should be reading this. This shouldn't be on your library shelves. That needs to happen at the community level. Alabamians love their libraries and the services which their libraries provide, and we as librarians love our amazing patrons. Alabama's public libraries are reflections of the communities they serve, and Alabama is a beautifully diverse state with all sorts of beautifully diverse people. You can just look around this room. Let's all continue to work together to protect our children, our First Amendment, our libraries, and the rights of individual Alabamians to control and choose the books they and their families read. Thank you very much.
This handout that we were handed while you were speaking, is that something?
That's-
all
That
profess-
actually is the breakdown of, at least at this time, that we're able to get the research data on, is the breakdown of the challenges, the formal challenges that were submitted to these individual libraries. There are still outstanding ones that we're waiting on from Coleman, from Mobile, I believe Farrell, no, I think Fairhope was in there as well. And it just kind of shows the breakdown of that.
Right.
This is challenges to the books.
Yes, ma'am, the formal challenges that
From
were
you.
made and the percentage of, library users, that reflects.
What about the person who, was not even a library patron?
Yes, that occurred in Ozark.
Yeah. I remember watching that on TV, the
Yes.
discussion.
I believe it was an elected official, after some of the conversation had been had, and they needed a formal complaint submitted,
Uh-huh.
and that is what he then did. But they did still honored it in that way. They just went through the first complete process of the first challenge, so it
Right.
takes a while.
Right.
Thank you. All right, Hannah Reese. Up again.
Hi, I'm Hannah Reese, and I'm from Cleanup, Alabama. I think that's a pretty convenient data. You know, you can shape data however you want to say, oh, well, only a percentage of the people are reviewing books. But we were told at our library that you're only allowed to submit one form per book. So multiple people weren't allowed to submit many complaints per book. So anyways, I don't think that's a really helpful information. But I'm sure maybe there's some other information in that packet. But anyway, aside from that, yes, I totally agree that we should be addressing this on the local level. Been doing it, you know, for months and months and months on end, starting back in February. And so I totally agree that ideally this would just stick with our local library boards. But the problem is they all pointed to you. Every single one on our board just said, we've never handled such a thing. And so they brought in Nancy Pack at the next library board meeting and had her address it. So it seems that everyone wants to point the finger at someone else for responsibility. The library board that was appointed wanted to point the finger at the to you guys, and then our local leaders wanted to point the fingers at the state legislators. And so everyone is saying, hey, it's not my responsibility, it's yours, and everyone's saying. So I think it's important to note that the parents and the people of Alabama are just recognizing that, hey, we've either appointed you to these positions or we've elected you to these positions, and so we expect you to do something. But so far, no one has. So I would agree that it very much would be ideal to be locally. But here we are at the APLS meeting because y'all do have a say, y'all do have control, and you are important. Like, you weren't meant to just sit here to do nothing. You're so valuable, and we're so grateful that you have this position. And so we're asking you to utilize it as you should. And what better way to utilize it than to protect the children of our communities? Children of all ages, from 0 to 18 are children. I think maybe in Alabama it's 19, but 18, whatever. Those are all children. They deserve to be protected. You know, Carol has presented and several other speakers harm from exposure to sexual content. And yes, the definition of sexually explicit versus pornography versus sexual topics are all different categories. And we think it's important to address them all because it's not appropriate for children to happen upon sexual materials of any kind. And so that's why we've stated it as such, and rightfully so, and I'll stand by it. I would also love for anybody to go watch the video that we did last week. It was a great conversation, and I'm not hiding anything about it, so you can gladly to go watch it. I would appreciate that. So I'm just here to say I'm so glad that Nancy wrote her memo and seemed to have had a change of heart on what the library board's decision should be. And so I hope to see that reflected in your decision today. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Sarah Sanchez.
She ended up, her longtime pastor for 20 years passed away, so she's a funeral.
And Leah Well.
Hi everyone, my name is Leah Billy Welburn. I live in Auburn, Alabama. The pronouns are they, them, and she, her, and I have a certification in early childhood development. I'm here today to affirm that all of us want safety for our children. We all want them to have more opportunities, an easier life, and more peace than we had. It's a universal human experience. I'm disappointed to see that there are political groups who have successfully hijacked this impulse. This room is full of wholehearted people whose pure intentions have been put towards nefarious ends, and there are real harms being caused by your actions. I'm speaking here today out of love and concern for all people of all ages living in Alabama and across the country. We need to be united as people who care about our homes and children against the forces of hate, division, and othering. We're one people, and this great home of ours needs protecting from those with political aims and selfish or misguided motivations. We have more in common than we have differences. God's light shines in the eyes of every child until the actions of adults do something that diminishes it. I've worked with children for all my life, as a religious exploration or Sunday school teacher, as a nanny and babysitter, and as a Montessori trained teacher's assistant. Children are capable, resilient, loving, and strong. They also give very little importance or significance to what others do in their own lives. They had no issue calling me Mixed Billy or seeing my chosen wardrobe, but their parents were another story. The claims advanced by groups such as Moms for Liberty contain an element of truth, and they appeal to our righteous and good impulses to protect and safeguard our children. It is true that exposure to sexually inappropriate material can be a harm to children. These harms, however, seem to be largely theoretical when it comes to the library, and it is not the ultimate harm that is happening to Alabamian children. The Trevor Project has documented increased rates of self-harm, including suicide in young people, and has shown the correlation between community acceptance of gender diverse people with the self-harm. Bigotry and discrimination are learned behaviors. The best way to protect marginalized people is to have the majority hear their stories with curiosity. When I say marginalized groups, I'm not just talking about LGBTQIA+ community. I'm also talking about people who are Jewish, Arab, Asian, women, children, biracial, people of color. All people who have different stories than the straight, white, cisgender majority. The censorship effort is a false flag operation. Claims are being made about child safety when the reality is an issue of parental discomfort. Discomfort of adults learning that their children are given the opportunity to explore the stories of people different than their parents. To those parents, I say your discomfort is valid. There's nothing wrong with being uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable regularly. However, it's deeply un-American to limit my autonomy to provide library materials to the children that I work with that they and their parents wish them to have exposure to. I invite you to take your discomfort and talk with your pastor, your therapist, your elders, not your elected officials. Your discomfort is your responsibility. Parent discomfort is not the responsibility of APLS. Parents have the freedom to engage with their libraries or not. There are tools made available to challenge and have books assessed. We already have what we need. Lord, the task that has been set before you to maintain a list of challenge materials is inappropriate. I understand the pressure you are under. Governor Ivey's recent letter reminds us that your funding is contingent on your appeasement of these concerns. The work that you already do for Alabamian libraries and the Library for the Blind are invaluable, and I don't want this put at risk. I believe in small government, which is efficient and effective. I protest the proposal that our collective tax dollars be wasted in this manner solely to appease the discomfort of very few parents. Already, there are many citizen volunteers in this room who are devoting time because they care about our children. I'd like to task you with making and distributing the list instead. If you're not interested in accepting this, some other alternatives for you to consider. Volunteer with a foster organization. volunteer with the Unitarian Universalist program Our Whole Lives, or OWL. It's a comprehensive lifespan sexuality education program, which helps young children to be safe from predators, helps children navigate puberty and their emergence into adulthood in a safe and appropriate manner. Something I would have definitely benefited from as a young person. We are united in the desire for our children to have a better life. Freedom to read is a part of that. Thank you, and God bless Alabama.
Thank you. All right. We appreciate the diverse views that have been expressed today. I think, as I've said before, we've had, since August, more people attending our meetings that have attended them in the last 25 or so years that I've been in this board.
Definitely made the board meetings more exciting.
Right.
We could do without some of that. But
I agree.
in any event,
I'd rather be
I
home.
worry, and we appreciate everybody's legitimate concerns.
You're gonna
But
do great.
I think that all of this controversy, which has involved a handful of libraries in the state out of the 220, very small number of libraries that have had any of these books, has damaged all libraries, I think, in terms of the funding that we so desperately need. And I'll remind everyone that this year we were fortunate to get $1.31 in state aid. That's the highest amount that we've gotten since we got almost 25 years ago, $1.25. So for many years we fell to $1 or less than that. Clearly, funding has not kept up with what is necessary. And I'll remind everyone that most of the libraries in the state are small libraries. I think 130 out of the 220 in the community are less than 10,000 people. And 77 are less than 5,000 people. In the 77 that are in 5,000, serving the communities of 5,000, the average salary is $23,000. So these people, our librarians, are working very hard for very little money. And what we need to be arguing, I hope that all of you have expressed this interest in the next legislative session, will be arguing for additional money for our libraries, because that's what's desperate. And finally, I guess I've been alarmed by some of our libraries receiving threats of physical harm to people. We've had board members called Nazis. This vitriol that is happening is hurting all libraries. So as we go forward, I hope people will keep that in mind, the damage that this is all done. The next item on the agenda is the chairman's report, and included in the agenda were letters from Speaker Ledbetter and Majority Leader Stadhagen, and my responses. I'm going to take a stand for what they say, what they say. The next item is the status of the opinion from the Attorney General's office.
Chairman Snyder, excuse me, I believe there was a board member from Ozark that was supposed to be scheduled to speak.
Yes. I did it like right after the last meeting.
She's right over there.
Yeah.
She's not on the list this time. I think we've gone on at this point. I'm sorry.
Well, I had signed up right after the last meeting.
but I don't think, anyway,
Saturday.
we'll welcome you at the next meeting, but, I think we've done our own at this point. And, the status of the opinion from the Attorney General's office, and as you know, we requested an opinion, at the last meeting, we had to formally adopt the minutes asking for that opinion. That was when our September meeting, as I understand, the timetable is approximately 90 days from when the request is received, so presumably we'll be receiving the opinion.
It's been 63 days today. It goes through a process because the Attorney General wants to make sure his opinion is as accurate as possibly be. It goes through the same type of process in the Supreme Court decision. Committees, it's multiple eyes on it. So that's what takes time.
So certainly by the next meeting, we should have that opinion.
I can't predict what
We
would
never,
happen.
we never trust lawyers to go quickly.
No.
Now, don't attack lawyers.
I know.
No, it's in the process. It's in the process.
The next item was the, status of the interviews. Let's see. I don't want to put, and that material is in there in terms of this approval was received from the board to interview and hire a library operation manager. And I'm not sure, Nancy, if you're able to speak on these 2 points. It sounds like we're having issues with that.
Well, I think we all know Rhonda, I believe she was appointed or made the move of the library technician position that was going to be discussed at the meeting, so.
And I guess what we'll do is we'll postpone that until the next meeting. And,
Mr. Snyder, Matt should be back in just a second. I think he went to go troubleshoot Nancy's connection.
On her end.
Hmm?
On her,
Yes.
on her end, yes.
Yes.
Alright, while we're doing that, why don't we go on to the next item, which was, I was gonna give a report on the, letters from Reed Freely, Alabama, that were addressed to me and Dr. Pack and was provided to, each of the board members. I've reviewed this. I've also talked with Mr. Albritton, and I wanted to remind everyone that Mr. Albritton has advised the board only speaks as a board. And individual board members do not speak for the board, and they all have their own views, some of which do differ from other people's views. And that, I recognize that Mr. Wall is somewhat in a different position from some of the rest of us because he is effectively a public official, being chair of the Republican Party in Alabama, and has asked his opinion more than others of us may. I don't think it is either appropriate or any legal basis for us to, as a board, to say that any board member is prohibited from saying, responding to any question or making any comment. I don't think that there's any authority. and I don't think it's appropriate. I know that, that Mr. Wall has, I think after one of those letters, in fact, did not speak before.
That's correct.
I don't think, any other action is required, other than, in my view, if anyone objects to it, that no action is required. But I know Mr. Wall wanted to make some comments.
No,
So,
I would, for me, this grand American experiment is such a wonderful thing, because it's the idea that we have freedom of speech, and that we have the ability. I value so much hearing opinions from people of all backgrounds.
Would you speak a little louder?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so I had this idea that I love the idea of freedom of speech. I love the idea of being able to talk with people of all backgrounds and have open dialogue. And what I see just through this process has been a degrading of that process. Things are getting personal and people are attacking individuals instead of going to the root and looking at what can we do as a society to make things better, which is what good leadership does. We all value the same things. We all want the same things. We want our families to be safe. We want a bright future. We want to be successful. We want to be comfortable. We want to be able to make a good living. We all have the same things. And I think if we could take the negativity out of it and look at people as individuals and really try to make the best decisions and come together where we can agree and have an open dialogue and not get stuck in these petty differences, but be open and honest with one another. That's the best thing. I have always found that. So I am a little more open than some people in my position might be. And that gets me in trouble sometimes. But it's important for me to hear opinions. So when I'm invited to speak or take part in an event, or if I'm invited to just come and hear someone's opinion, my answer is usually yes whenever it can be, because I value hearing people's opinion. That's something that's important to me. Now, with the controversy on the Clean Up Alabama event, when they invited me to that, I agreed. I was actually on my way home from speaking in Ozark or Coffee County on a completely different subject. And it was on my way home, and I was like, yeah, I would be glad to stop by and hear your opinion. But I also value so much this board and my fellow board members. And I never want to do anything that would put anything we do or decisions we make in any way that could be criticized. So that's why, I did not go to that event. Not because I back down one bit from the idea of free speech and the idea that we should have open dialogue, but that I do believe it is important for this board to be independent in making our decisions and being able to listen to all sides. So I hope, I do find it ironic that a group that espouses the ability to read freely would challenge that idea to share thought freely. And I would ask people on all sides of this, whether it's Read Freely Alabama or whether it's Clean Up Alabama, to respect others and to respect people who have different opinions. Because it's through that respect and sharing ideas that we hopefully can find solutions that will actually benefit our state and our communities. So that's kind of just my thoughts.
all right, next.
Ron,
Yeah.
I'm available to tell you about the, thank you folks, I don't think you wanted to catch what I have, that's why my office doing this video conferencing. I appreciate what y'all are saying today and taking note of it. For the library for the blind and disabled, we moved Rhonda Napier, who was over our library development, down to that position. It was best for the agency. We still have the position open, which it was the same status where she was with library development. It was a lateral move. We will be advertising, which we have put out, and we have solicited people to apply for the supervisory library and over library development. At the present, Jessica Everingham is over that division as that is part of her duties, and that person reports to her. We're hoping that we can conduct interviews sometime in January and present to the board the candidate for library development. But just for the agency's purpose, it was time to remove Ms. Ralia from over that division. She has to do some federal reports if we're to continue to get federal dollars. As library technician position, we have not moved forth with that. Right now, it is, we are, awaiting to see, what develops. It's just, it's on the list, but the priority of that at this point, the division has enough people to cover that, and we will get to that as soon as we can.
Thank you. All right, let's going back to the agenda. Virginia, you had a report, you and Angela reviewed, complaints received from Hannah Reese regarding Dr. Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a full discussion with Ben.
Ma'am, can you speak up? I'm in the hard of hearing too.
So they were asking you to speak up.
All right, I thought everybody could hear me. Hate that. Okay. Angela and I were the two board members that looked into this. We had full discussions about the letter. I don't know how many times I reviewed that letter, line for line. We had 3 people to sign the letter and give their titles, but there was no signatures. There was no addresses. There were no phone numbers. There was no way to contact anybody that signed it, except we knew the library area they came from. So, from that standpoint, it was just a letter that was received electronically. A lot of people's minds, it's legal, a lot of people's minds, it's not. In mine, it's not. You sign something if you state something about what's going on, if you believe it. The summary of the committee's work, both of us have talked to Dr. Pack at length, because she has this letter. They attached a video to the letter. We have the video, we review the video, we transcribe the video. So we very well know all about the video, which Dr. Pack was invited to the board meeting of the Ottawa County, I believe I'm correct on that, the Ottawa County board meeting. The remarks made was not by the board of Ottawa County, it was by those who attended that meeting. We reviewed articles, many meeting articles that was published. Is it 18, 19? I think they write an article every day about the library. They don't have anything else to write about. They covered cancellation of events and the reinstatement of events. And that is a nightmare if you try to follow it on dates. There's no way you can reconcile dates on what they say, what we've heard, and what the letter states. So that's out the window. We covered, read the media coverage on the governor's office and everything her office has published. And of course, we got the letters that was sent to Dr. Pack as well as to our chairman. We have statements that Dr. Pack made at the meeting. We read all that. Statements by John Wall, and we read all that. There's much of it. Miscellaneous items on the library, some other people covered it. I think Fox News and a few more had some coverage in it. So after reviewing the video of Dr. Pack speaking, reading the newspaper articles, and I know, you know, I've always said you believe half of what you read when it comes to newspaper stuff. But in essence, in summary of all of this, we find that there's not enough material for us to take further action on. It doesn't reach that level of taking action on anything. So Angela and I recommend that we file this and close this file.
We have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
We have a second.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. All right. Then the next item was Governor Ivey's letter of October 4th, which included proposed changes to the administrative code of the agency. think that the way that would work is we have to publish proposed changes. The first date they can be published is, because of the state calendar for this, would be, it has to be submitted January 20th and would be published on January 31. What we have to decide is then be a public comment period. I think I would suggest there be a 90-day public comment period. This would be give ample time for people to comment. There will, and I suspect we're going to have many comments with respect to it. Those people who think it's inappropriate and putting undue pressure upon the local librarians and people who think it's not strong enough. We will then have after the public comment period closes, we will have a hearing with respect to that and then adopt either the as proposed or an amendment as we might make. So I think what we need is a motion to authorize the publication of the proposed amendments submitted by the governor.
I would make that motion.
I'll second.
Do we have any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any, no opposition, it's unanimously approved. Let's see. Next item is,
Just quick to go back, what were the dates on the public comment on that?
what I was handed, John, was that the next publication date, the due date to go in.
Submission.
Is submission is January the 20th and it will be published on January 30th. As I understand.
And then after that, it'll be the 90-day comment period.
90-day comment period. And then we'll schedule a board meeting to discuss the comments and how to proceed from there. Then
Knows that, Ron, the process goes that if, the Legislative Research Service will look at the language we've used, if they disapprove of the language, they will turn it back to us and tell us to rewrite that language, into the code. They will review it, and the next step is if we have to have a public hearing and have to notify everyone who's involved what we're considering, in a date of the hearing. And that gets down to, it has to be a minimum of 35 days, you have to collect, information, they can either write it, and then they can also present it at a hearing. Then, if you decide to go with what you have submitted, that's fine. If you don't, you have to start the process over to amend what you sent in. And then it goes through the same process of, as the Legislative Research Service reviews what you've decided to change it to or not. So it will be a process.
So I guess I have not understood, so when we get the public comments and have the hearing, the board meeting, if we were, based on the comments, that there were to be any changes, that would also have to go out for additional public.
The process would be, would repeat.
All right, thank you. All right,
Hopefully the governor got it right.
I think there's gonna be a lot of comment.
There will be, and there's a lot of money involved if you read it closely.
The next item is that, in the previous board meeting, we had directed Dr. Pack to come up with a form of a list where people could submit objections to various books, and I think from the minutes, I think it was somewhat unclear what some of what was intended was. And that is under F5, and there were questions raised before we go out with this. And first question was it intended as a list for library staff and not one that we would publish to the general public? And my view was that it was intended for, it would be distributed to the libraries of the state. So I think that would be the answer to that unless there's objection. Should the motion to, I think in the minutes it said it was supposed to be submitted by parent. Should that be changed to any person? I think whether it's a parent or not would get very confusing. I think any person could do that. Should parameters be set to include only Alabama IP addresses? I think it should. We don't want out-of-state submissions.
I do worry with that there are some people with satellite internet that their IP address would show up from another state that would still be Alabama citizens.
Well, I think part of that will be that I think we do want anyone submitting is going to need to
provide an address, maybe
their name, address, and phone number. So,
Not just
I think
the
that-
IP
yeah,
right,
yeah.
maybe tie it to a physical address.
Yeah,
instead of
right,
an
be
IP
a
address.
physical address.
That would solve that problem.
And, I think the answer.
Would you agree with that?
I would.
And then, if we want an automated message going back to anyone who submitted material, and I think the answer is we do want to acknowledge.
Thank you for your submission.
Yeah. And I think each book submitted needs to be on a separate form. We do not want anyone submitting a list of 20, 50, ever how many books. I guess the question was, does APLS automatically accept that the book is for children? Going back, I think one of the things, and I think the form provides that when you're filing this, you have to list what library it was found in, and also needs to be what date it was found in.
Because there may have been
And
changes
what
in between.
section.
And what section and what page
Yeah.
is inappropriate, because I don't want someone to have to read the full book to get to if it's one small.
God
area.
forbid. Read a whole book.
So, I guess it was a question, but we automatically accept the book is for children. I think if they've listed it, it's in the children's section, I don't think we get into whether it's aimed at children or not.
And for clarification, I would say, we're talking about children, juvenile, or young adult, anything that would be minor.
So, you're saying anyone under 18?
Right, a minor, a youth section, rather than just, because I know different libraries have different sections, some have juveniles, they will call it different things. It's probably better to put a more legal term on that of being, a minor, rather than a certain title of the section. In case one library might have a children's section, the other might have a juvenile section, they might use different language. So let's say any section aimed at minors.
And then I guess there was question raised, do we need to buy software to search titles and recommended grade level? I'm not sure we need to do that.
Well, is that versus individual doing it over how many hours? Is that what it was broken down to, how much that would cost?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, the reason we did that was to verify that it is actually a children's book. We could have somebody submit a book and, say it was called, John Wall Speaks Out for Liberty. And John Wall has not published that book yet, So we need to verify the title of some way, and, so that, you know, anybody can make up a title and put it in, and, then they would say, oh, I made up a title, put it in, and they did this with, on the list, and verify the title and authors, what that, the focus of that would be.
Well,
If we have a title, an author, and a library that it's in, we should know fairly close, right?
well, I'm not sure, I think I thought our thought was, we certainly don't want to be determining whether a book is appropriate or not for a particular section. I think what our thought was, the original thought, I believe your thought was that this could serve, and it would just be for libraries, to alert them that these books have been challenged, they may want to
There are.
review them
There are
themselves and
constituents,
determine.
right, there are constituents
someone
who
is-
find that inappropriate in some way, they have the chance to flag that and review
If
it.
they want to, and then they make their own determination. So I'm not sure that we need to spend any time trying to verify that it's in fact a children's book, or the book exists or not exists. I think when we required that it be listed as to where it is, which libraries, and what section, it looks like to me that that's providing enough information, and then the local libraries can make their own decision as to whether it's appropriate in that section or not appropriate.
Well, I think we need to wait and determine if this becomes a real program.
Pardon?
I think we wait to see if this becomes a real program. I mean, it may die out. We may not get a lot of response from it before we expend $70,000.
Yeah, I don't think we do either.
And when all this quietens down in the summer and everybody's on vacation, it's gonna be dead.
So the real talk, and I guess the question is, I think this was assuming we'd get 50 book titles submitted per week. I have no idea how many book titles we're going to get submitted. I don't think it's going to be 50 times 52, 25. I hope it's not 2,500 titles submitted. So I'm not sure. I think what we do is we start this and see how much time is really involved. But I don't think we buy any particular software or anything.
But yeah, if it gets to the level proposed here, she will have to have some help. An individual to help with this.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have
The
to.
staff that's here is gonna have to take
Yeah.
this on.
But I think one person can handle that. I think she's got, but I think they could respond and, send an acknowledgement, either email back or a letter back.
And most of the complaints we've heard have been over a handful of books, I would say less than 100. And if there's duplicates, those can very, very easily be weeded out.
And then we can even have it set up for when it comes to email, that you can set up a response to where it comes back directly. We receive, you involve us, so they don't even have to complete a response, they can get automatic response.
Thanks for the response, we've received it, we're looking at it, and we're adding it to the list.
But I think you're right, we'll see how many turn out, because particularly, I don't know assuming the accuracy of the 5 libraries or so, have few complaints have really been made.
Help me recall, after the first board meeting, the staff and Dr. Pack did a search on the books that was mentioned on our first board meeting. And was it 12 or 13?
Where it was, I looked at it, was of the books that were listed that you had given, that Reese had given us a list of, I think, and it was through
Our database.
the database, which all libraries don't put all their books in the database. But from that database, I think there were, most of those books on the list were like in 5 or 6 libraries. There were 1 or 2 books in the larger city library. There were 1 or 2 books that
think one of them was from some Alabama author that was in 25 and 30. So, you know, I mean, we have 220 libraries, and most of these books that are complained about are 5 or 6 libraries. You see,
And most of our libraries that have funding for collections.
that's right.
The majority of our libraries don't.
That's right.
They struggle to even have a part-time person to keep the door open. You know, they're not concerned about it.
So I think now, so I think that answers, I think we're in agreement in terms of that, so we would go forward with this setup along those lines. And I don't think we need.
Is everyone, Ron, is everyone comfortable with the book review form that we have developed? We're using a catch stub to make sure that a bot is not responding and we're having them done electronically and verifying that it's legitimate.
Yes, I think we are. And like I said, we're going to have, they're going to put their name on it and where the book title. And we're showing
the
what,
one
where it
question-
was found, which library. I would
The
just
one
say,
thing that, Ron, the one thing that we missed was, this would be confidential.
yes,
The information is that who submitted it, and the reconsideration form is confidential, and only APLS says that it will retain that information.
so what we do is have the list period. Okay? Is everybody comfortable with that? All right, I think we could go forward.